Hi everybody, it's Tatiana, and today I'm coming to do a wrap up of the books that I have read from the months of May to July. I'm a little frustrated with myself because I can't find one of the books that I know of right now. I could start on this list and find out that another one is not where it's supposed to be. But anywho, I am only going to talk somewhat in depth because I don't want this to be a 30-minute video about the books that I have not done reviews for. I'm very proud of myself that I've done a significant number of reviews in relationship to the books that I have read recently. I'm happy about that. So if I've done a review of that book, I will mention it in this wrap up, but I will link the review in the description box below if you have not already seen it. So starting with the month of May, I first read Rosewater by Tade Thompson. That was a library book that I have since returned because it's August and thoroughly enjoyed it. Cannot wait to get on to book 2, but wanted to read some more books on my shelf before I did that. After Rosewater, I read A Mistress Makes 3 by Frances Ray. I did not enjoy this. I was very disappointed. Frances Ray was one of my favorite romance authors when maybe 10-15 years ago, and there are some books of hers that I have read since then that I liked just fine. It was this book, and it's not even the mistress aspect that I didn't like, even though, you know, that storyline was annoying. The most annoying thing to me about this story was the repetitive use of absolutes. Like, there were so many he always, or she would never, or she has never, or she'll never. And I'm like, you didn't know this person for 2 days. You ain't known them long enough to say what they always done or what they have never done to you, with you, for you, because there hasn't been enough to you, with you, for you to make a partially, I think, statement. Like right now you living in I hope you would not. Not he never, she never, he always, she that annoyed the stew out of me. Another thing that I did not care for about this is that the main character, because we only follow 2 storylines, the main character's name is Gina, and then her best friend's name is Celeste, I think. And Gina has like no self-esteem when we are starting this novel, and I kind of had a problem with the fact that Gina has this friend, her best friend, that's been boosting her up and encouraging her and telling her how great she is, and the only time she really starts listening to somebody telling her that is when her new male interest gives her the same shit your best friend been telling you. And granted, I know there's a difference when you have been in a relationship that's been somewhat emotionally detached or abusive. There's a difference between hearing it from your friend versus your significant other. But that really annoyed me. Like, I'm like, Celeste been telling you cute for as long as y'all known each other. But no, this dude come in the picture and he says that you cute to him, and now you believe it. That kind of annoyed me as well. But yeah, this, all in all, I think the feeling that I got when I finished this was that this was thrown together, and it was not Ray's best work. It wasn't even her good work. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. That was a little harsh, but that was the deal. After I finished A Mistress Makes 3, I read Can't Escape Love by Alyssa Cole, which is a novella that I read on my Kindle. I don't have the print copy of that, even though it is available in print, which I didn't know she was doing, but I'm glad that I got it on Kindle because I got to like read it faster than it was actually available, which I thoroughly enjoyed. That follows, it is a novella in the Reluctant Royals series, and it follows Reggie, the sister of, excuse me, my eye is itching, the sister of, oh my goodness, I'm totally spacing on the main character's best friend from a Duke by default. A Duke by default, the main character, and a Duke by default, her sister. Totally spacing on the names right now. My bad. But what I really enjoyed about this was that it doesn't give you like a lot of Reggie's backstory, which is fine. Reggie is this very intelligent, very strong, willful person who has a great sense of self, who happens to be handicapped. And what I really love about the story is that it shows that people who are handicapped are still people, and they still have desires, and they still have urges, and they still desire companionship. And yeah, I really enjoyed that story. Right now, Alyssa Cole can do like a very little bit of wrong in my book. So yeah, that was good. So that's all that I read in May. I read 3 books. On to June, I read 4 books, and only one of those books I think was a book that I owned. I read The Pisces by Melissa Broder, which I have already done a review of. I also read Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I read Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. All 3 of those were library books. And yeah, I really enjoyed, those 3, I haven't reviewed Stories of Your Life and Others, which I really enjoyed. And it took me a while to actually get into, because I am not someone who reads a lot of short stories. And these were science fiction short stories. Like, no fantasy buffer. Straight science fiction short stories. And so it took a little bit for me to get into them, and for me to actually figure out for myself how to take them, because I don't read a lot of just straight science fiction. There's 9 times out of 10 with the science fiction that I read, there's some level of fantasy that's thrown in there. And yeah, so but I really enjoyed those stories and what surprised me is, of those stories, my least favorite was the one that Arrival is based off of, which is Story of Your Life and Others. I want to say my favorite out of that was the one that had to do with the math problem. That one was probably my favorite one, and that's because it had to do with having something that you love, that you put your whole mind, your life's work behind it, then having one little thing come in and fuck it all up, and then figuring out how to go on with this one little thing that throws everything that you thought you knew, everything that you have based your existence upon, into question. That's what I loved about that story. I also read Breathless by Beverly Jenkins in June, and that is the book that I cannot find. And I am like totally upset, because I love that book. That is the sequel to Forbidden, and yeah, it follows a different character but still in Edie and Ron's family. And yeah, I enjoyed it to the point where I had considered getting rid of it, because I didn't know when I purchased it. I got it at a library sale, and I didn't know when I purchased it that it was the middle book in a trilogy. But now I just want to get the other 2 books in print so that I have all 3, because I could see myself reading them again when I am in a life slump. Not necessarily a reading slump, but when you need something that's comforting and enjoyable to read, yet informative at the same time. And then on to July, which was a heavy reading month. I feel like I got my groove back last month, and my reading waxes and wanes as the year goes on, but last month was a good reading month. I started by reading Sweet Française by Irene Nemirovsky, and reading that completely threw my mental TBR out of whack because I just wanted more sad stories. So after reading Sweet Frances, I read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and I actually have that book beside me. Haha! Have this one because this was on my bookcase. And yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this. I have a review of this that's coming. I have not uploaded it yet because there were some other videos I wanted to get out beforehand, but this review is on the way, so I'm not going to talk about it. After I finished The Nightingale, I read In the Shadow of the Banyan. I read this during 24 and 48 from start to finish, so I was happy about that. This was not the right book, I think, to read during any kind of readathon, reading sprint, whatever, but I do appreciate this story for the story it tells. I wanted to read this, and there's another nonfiction story that I can't remember what the title of it is, but after reading this book for my church a few years ago called The Case for Grace, there was a vignette in there where one of the people who they interviewed for the book went through the revolution in Cambodia and basically being enslaved and imprisoned as a child and being forced to work in the paddy fields and the hardships and difficulties of that came, you know, that experience, and watching people die basically. And so after reading that, I had known nothing about that, and then my mom told me that the movie The Killing Fields was based off of that, which I never watched because that's not my kind of movie, but I knew about the movie. So that's why I wanted to read this, and this is taken from, the author was 5, I think, when this revolution happened, and she actually lived through the revolution, and the main character in the story is 7. So we're getting this story from the eyes of a child as the exodus out of Cambodia is forced upon its residents, and this is a child of affluence, and the things that she goes through, that she experiences, that she sees her family goes through, how they deal with loss and living through and coping with all of these changes that are being forced upon them, as well as the brutality of the Khmer Rouge, and I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, and yeah, all of that. I really appreciated this story. What I did not like about this story, and it's nothing that the author could have done to change that, it has more to do with me than the story. When I read a story about something that's so negative and so ugly that happens, there's a part of me that wants to know the why. Like, why is this happening? What is the purpose of this? What's the what positive comes from this? And the fact of the matter is, as a child, you don't know the why. You don't get that. And so we don't get that in this story. And Cambodia is still a country in turmoil. So that, again, that's a me thing that has nothing to do with, and there's nothing that the author could have done with writing this from what basically was her perspective. There's nothing she could have done to change that, because I appreciate getting it from this perspective in the story. Having said that, I did make the decision after reading this that I did not want to read the music of Ghost, because it would have been the same kind of, like, the same story, just with the kid coming back after having escaped Cambodia to attempt to find a family member, and I don't know, I just didn't want to read it, and I was out of my let's read sad books mood. So yeah, this was the end of my let's read sad books experience. Then came the Reading Rush readathon, and yeah, I did some reading during that as well. I read The Vision Volume 2, Little Better Than Beast, and yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this, more than what I expected it to be, and I really enjoy what this is saying about what could possibly happen with AI being brought into play in society. Yes, enjoyed. I also read Lazarus X66. This is kind of like a filler story, but yo, this is thick. Like, this is a thick graphic novel, and it's giving you the story of some of the other Lazari in this dystopian world after what happens in volume 5 of Lazarus and where we could possibly be going. There's a mystery that's been opened up during this volume, and so I need them to hurry up and come out with volume 6, because the question that's brought up in this volume is a question I have had since like volume 3 or 4. So answer my question. That's all that I have to say about this. I thoroughly enjoyed it though. The Lazarus graphic novel series is one of my favorite series right now. The other one of my favorite series right now is Giant Days, and I read Giant Days volume 9. Thoroughly enjoyed this. I laughed out loud while reading this story, or these issues bound up in this graphic novel. They were so like where the girls are in their life experience, in their college experience, and how the story is expanding to show some of their male friends as well. So good, and just such a great de-stressor. And then I read Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. I have a review of this. I think I've edited it. It's coming. It's coming, I promised. So I'm not going to talk about this here. And then the last book that I read in the month of August was Tempest by Beverly Jenkins. And y'all, this book has a special place in my heart. This was special to me. I have to say, Sweet Frances didn't make me cry. The Nightingale didn't make me cry. In the Shadow of the Banyan did make me cry. Tempest and Regan Carmichael had me freaking boo-hooing. And it's really because of the dynamics of the situation that Regan finds herself in this story. She has answered an advertisement to be a mail order bride to this doctor in Wyoming, so she leaves Virginia City, which is not really in Virginia, to travel to Wyoming to be this mail order bride for this doctor. And the reason why he's looking for a mail order bride is because he needs a mother for his daughter, and his wife died in childbirth, and so he's looking for a mother for his daughter. And Regan gets there, and it's this beauty in the relationship that she develops with Addie, I think it's the daughter's name, and Regan being herself and bringing her headstrong self into the situation, as well as the changes that take place in Addie. Like, this just had a whole different, it probably meant more to me as someone who has experienced that kind of situation, not the mail order bride thing, but has experienced the step-parent situation. And I have a huge respect for step-parents, because like both of my parents got divorced when I was very young. I want to say 2. My dad remarried super fast and moved back to North Carolina, and my mom it took a few years before she married again. But when she and my stepdad got married, you know, I always had a feeling like, well, while they were dating, like he dated her, but he dated me too. And that getting to the time that you spend to get to know a child, and thankfully having it done in the 80s, where a man with good intentions is not looked at as somebody who's doing something evil, because now men don't know not to fuck kids. Anyway, step parents have always had a special place in my heart because of that, because I have always felt that, yeah, my stepdad chose my mom, but he chose me too. And so yeah, that whole dynamic, and then add to that Regan being herself and bringing herself into a situation, and the benefit of Regan being in that situation, and what that brings out of her husband that she's entered into this contract to marry, as well as this child that she's forging a relationship with. It was beautiful. Absolutely absolutely beautiful. Beverly Jenkins, damn it, I need to read more by her. Yeah, that was the, like, I ended August on a high note, and I feel like this video is long as balls, so I'm going to shut up. That's everything that I have read. Hopefully I will remember to put the links in the description box. I have been really like mentally trifling with remembering to put links in the description box, so hopefully I remember to do so. And if you haven't checked out those reviews, do that. Yeah, I'm gonna go. Thank you all for watching this probably long ass video. We'll see how much I can cut it when editing takes place. I will catch you in the next one. Have a good weekend.